solutions to this. Only less than 200 days away from the regulation taking effect, and we didn't really find any solutions. There are plugins out there, especially the larger ones, that do things, of course, with a strong focus on their own plugins to make them compliant. But the fact is that many websites, many WordPress websites are created with multiple plugins. So there are a lot of different ways to store personal information. And that's a problem. So we came up with this idea. Actually, you could say that our initiative isn't really a plugin.
Yeah.
More like an interface or a framework that you can adopt. So if you are a plugin developer, or if you're a theme developer, that you store data or personal data to help the community understand how your plugin handles this data. So I'm not going to create a plugin for the repository, but I hope that a lot of other plugin developers will this idea of an PHP object interface, which it actually is. Well, last Friday I finally finished reading the whole of the regulation. So that was step one for me.
Okay.
Step two will be to detail which kind of functionality that you would need to provide a website owner for them to become compliant with the GDPR. So for us to create this interface, we need to set up a minimal set of rules that if you say that your plugin is compliant, you need to have these things available. So the simplest one would be if a visitor to your site comes and they say, show me or I want to have access to all the data that you store on me. You need to be able to create that list.
Mm-hmm.
So we will create, in the interface, there will be a function that will retrieve that data. But how that function is implemented depends on the plugin that say that they store data.
Okay. And so...
And my biggest concern is that, well, it's the strength of WordPress and the community, I guess, that there are so many different ways that you can do this.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many ways that you can store data. So there's no way for us to create one unified way to identify it. And so we need to stay, quite high up in a helicopter, saying we can propose to identify it, but we can't really go and identify the data ourselves. And I think the biggest challenge then would be this idea to be adopted widely.
Okay.
Because we would need that. We can't enforce this on any plugin, or we can't even automatically go in and check where the data is in all the plugins that are out there. We need the adoption from the plugin developers to make this happen.
So.
Yeah, and also that I think that's also going to be one of the main challenges is that many plugin developers don't see why they need to do this yet.
Yeah.
Also because they're not the site owners, so they're not really responsible. The site owners are.
Mm-hmm.
It can only happen from within the community.
Yeah, but it's...
I think this ties into something that everybody is already talking about. We're talking about privacy. There's in the news all the time, not related to WordPress, not related to websites in general, but just the fact that our personal information is more and more often used. Well, I would say against us, but that's not what I mean. It's used to further businesses in some way, so that they can sell or they can make intelligently choices based on our metrics. And that whole discussion is already rolling out there. I think that what we will see is that this is called the EU GDPR, but I think that this has the potential of going outside of the EU. It is already going outside of the EU. There aren't many websites in the world that can say that no, we do not accept access from within the EU. So potentially you will need to address this. And I think a lot of clients are already asking about this, but they're just not using the word GDPR. But they are concerned, especially within a WordPress setting, when you have clients that are larger organizations, they already have this on their radar. That's one of the things that they point out when they say, well, we're not sure about selecting WordPress because it's just a plugin platform, and blah blah blah. The whole security issue comes up, and this is just part of it. So I think that the time is with us, and all the small or medium-sized organizations won't have this set up by May 2018, but it will be something everybody is talking about by that time.
So
yeah, and that's my goal. That the small logo that Peter, the other guy from the GDPR WP, created, is that of course at some point it would make sense that when you go into the repository or when you start installing plugins on you will see if they are compliant or not. Choose to have that shown. So say, okay, I don't know if all the different plugins that I've installed myself or some developer installed them for me, I don't know if they're compliant. Aware that this is something that I need to look at, because it is actually me as a website owner that is responsible, partly anyway. So installing a plugin that will check if all the other plugins are compliant, our interface comes in. So if all the other plugins utilize this interface and you install this check for GDPR compliance, you will see small green dots for all the plugins that are compliant, and for the ones that aren't, maybe, So I think that a WordPress developer or a company that sells WordPress services, so developing or plugins or whatever, very quickly, if you want to have a market within the EU, at least, you will need to address this, even if your client isn't. So as soon as you see a website or you start building a website where you collect data, even an IP number.
Okay.
So you should be the professional raising the question of, okay, so is it more than an IP number? Why do we do this? What is the gain of collecting this data?
Okay.
So really it's a two-side thing.
Okay.
I think there are two sides of that, maybe three. One of them is that it depends on the country. Here in Denmark, for example, we have like a personal identification number. If you do store that, there are some specific Danish or regional laws about how you do that. The same rules don't apply to emails and other kind of personal data. As soon as you think about storing personal data and the wider context that is now when we talk about GDPR, you do need to have the technical, the very physical part of cryptation, but you also need to understand that maybe a shared server somewhere on a very cheap web hotel isn't the right solution.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a whole bunch of things there that you need to take care of, and it's easy for me to say. Right now I'm employed in a fairly big corporation, and we do all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So there will definitely be a market for WordPress in a larger agency setup post GDPR. But from a plugin or a theme developer, the ones that provide a lot of the solutions that build a website. Again, not to toot my own horn here, but the idea of an interface makes small effort for a developer. You just need to go in and point out where the data is.
Mm-hmm.
You need to do. So of course, if you're a developer doing a plugin, when do you need to start thinking about GDPR, and when can you stop?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can start as soon as you have provided functions that are required in the interface. So, can I fetch all the data? And of course, let's say that I create a plugin and I save 3 types of data, but when I do the interface implementation, I only fetch the 2. Then theoretically, your plugin would validate as being compliant, because I can't check if you have that extra piece of data or not. So there would need to be a whole set of code reviews actually set up so that if you are really compliant, one thing is that you say that you are, but we need a third party to go in and actually validate that yes, you are in fact compliant. But I think that to get the ball rolling, you need to set the bar low, ask developers to start thinking about privacy. I think when you do that, it's not a new concept to have privacy by design anyway.
So,
I have a comment to that. I think the adoption will happen through larger companies. The large sites that deal with a lot of data will be the first ones that, because they know that if they get a 4% fine,
mm-hmm.
turnover, they know that they need to get this done quickly. So they will be the drivers for this change. Them and of course special sites that deal with very sensitive data will also be the ones that drive this. And then yes, so on websites that collect data that isn't really that interesting, they will follow, but they won't be the ones that have this up and running by me.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Well, I think I referred to Schrödinger's cat when you asked me, because it is like, well, I can ask, but then I would need to know, and if I know, I would need to store it. So I think the first time I came across GDPR and people start asking about it, I say, well, it's a bit like the cookie law, that everybody all of a sudden needed to have this pop-up that said, just so you know that I'm going to store data. But nobody really, I mean, it's very few sites that actually do that correctly, meaning they already store data as soon as they show that to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
1 or 2 plugins in the repository that do that in the right way. So basically, the GDPR in a WordPress sense is like an extension of that cookie policy, but you need to put it up there as soon as people enter your website saying, I don't know who you are, I haven't asked yet, but if you click this one button, I will ask. You need to ask.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if you have Google Analytics on your website, everybody has that. You collect data on people.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know how that's gonna work out, but yes, you do have this damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation here. You need to open that box and see if the cat is dead or not. I'm asking, we're talking about it here internally these days, how we're going to tackle WordCamp Europe next. So maybe I am going to talk about it.
Well, I'm sure that.
I think that the fact that you have GDPR as a theme on a meetup is impressive. I mean, we haven't had that in Denmark yet.
Okay.
And I think there's a lot of work being done in regards to GDPR right now, but it's the lawyers talking.
Yeah.
So whatever kind of work that we can do, the non-lawyer part, you know, the technical, how can we actually tackle this?
Mm-hmm.
Before get started, I mean, it's 200 days away, and for the WordPress project, I know spend all the time doing the design, and then when you have 1 week left, they come knocking on the technical door saying, yeah, you need to have this done now. So I think it's great that you're already talking about it. We should all be talking about this from a technical point of view. But yeah, it doesn't mean that we all need to read the whole regulation, but it does mean that we need to understand what kind of functions physically that we need to implement into our code.
Well,
yeah, do that.
Okay.
I'll post it on our blog then.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Kåre, for giving us 30 minutes from your time. And
sure.
If not before, we'll see you next year. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Well,
See ya.
see ya.